Hour 2, Jones and Keefe here on WEEI. It's a weird pick six from Marcus Jones yesterday. Flacco had the back. I don't think it was Chase Brown. I forget which back it was.
Not open.
Well, he was
for
open.
A second, but the game moves pretty quick.
He was open. He stared at him. He stared him down, and then he just
he's like, don't have it. Let me throw it right to Marcus Jones.
Marcus Jones, 32 yards.
Great play.
Or whatever it was on the touchdown there. And the Patriots were able to take the lead right then and there on that play. 33 yards to the house, my mistake. And so I think you look at the way the defense played yesterday, and this came up a little bit last week. Is this defense championship caliber? And do you need the defense to step up even more with some of the injuries that have accumulated for the Patriots yesterday? You can talk about that here on Jones and Keefe, Patriots Monday, Victory Monday, as most of them are these days. 617-779-7937. We'll get into what happened Week 12 of the NFL coming up about 25 minutes from now, every Monday at 11:30. We'll be joined by Christian Ellis from that Patriots defense coming up later on this hour as well. We already talked to Hunter Henry in the 10 o'clock hour. If you missed any of that, it's on the Odyssey app. You can jump in on the injuries piling up, Will Campbell, Jared Wilson, on some of the red zone struggles. We're getting texts about that at 617-779-7937. Jones and Rich, are you guys for real?
Yes.
The red zone failures, not once, not twice, but 8 times. It's 100% on the offensive line.
Oh, okay.
The running back and the quarterback. It's not on Josh McDaniels.
Okay.
I mean, some of the I don't want to let Drake May off the hook there because I think most
the
of it goes back to the quarterback.
And you should be able to pick up a yard. I get it, but I don't know. That's a lot of cracks at it, and
it's a lot of runs with Jennings and Stevenson twice.
You can't be more creative than that. They can't do something different.
And pretty much every time they were dropping back and throwing, Drake May did hit Hunter Henry for a touchdown. That wasn't in the red zone. That was outside.
Yeah, but still,
he did hit him. He hit him for one that got called back down there. Yep. So I don't know. Maybe use what was the MVP of the league, although after Stafford last night, which I know we'll get to.
Oh,
what happened.
Yeah, no, Drake May's not winning that.
Drake May's certainly not the betting favorite for that anymore. So you can talk about the red zone struggles. Vrabel in the first hour was discussing first take. Stephen A. and Cam Newton, that whole flare-up from last week. So you want in on any of that, again, you can. 617-779-7937. How would you grade the defense's day yesterday, Keefe? They do get a stand at the end. They have a pick six. I mean, really, they gave up one real touchdown drive yesterday.
That's what I was going to say.
How'd you feel about the defense?
Not great. I'd go C+. Maybe that's a harsh grade. I just don't think the Bengals without Burrow and Chase were really this huge challenge, and the game was close the whole time. Now, both quarterbacks threw a pick six, right? So, if you look at the final score, 26-20, there's a defensive score for both. So, really, the defenses on both sides were a little bit more productive than what it might look like. But, I don't know, you're giving up over 100 yards to Chase Brown. That was a surprise to me. And you saw it right away, getting big chunks. He'd rip off a 10-yard run, and you're like, oof. And a lot of that's Milton Williams. Without Milton Williams, this is not as good of a running back or not as good of a run defense. We were making fun of Dan Orlovsky last week because he was saying how, this team plays too much nickel and they can't stop the run because even though they had been number one in the league at stopping the run. So I don't think their issue was playing Marcus Jones too much. I think their issue was not having Milton Williams. And so what is that going to look like in the weeks going forward? So hopefully you get Milton Williams back when he's able to come off the IR, and then I won't feel as bad about the run defense.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt this program.
This is breaking news. Breaking news on WEEI is presented by the BetMGM Network. For all your betting needs, check out the newly rebranded BetMGM Network on the Odyssey app or locally on WEEI AM 850.
You mentioned Milton Williams. He has what's being called a high ankle sprain. He's on IR. Jared Wilson, according to Ian Rappaport, also suffered a high ankle sprain in yesterday's game. Sources say he's considered week to week. Rap Sheet then editorializes here. While most high ankle sprains are 4 to 6 weeks, the hope is this is on the shorter side. With Will Campbell missing time, it's a challenge for New England's offensive line. So Rappaport has had updates on both today.
All right.
It does sound like both, let's say it's 6 weeks.
Aren't done for the year.
Correct. They could both be back for the playoffs based on Rap Sheet's earlier reporting on Will Campbell and now this on Jared Wilson. I'll just be curious to see. It's a high ankle sprain. Let's see if he goes on IR. Milton Williams went right on IR with the same injury. So let's just see. I just want to track those two things, and I'll be curious to watch it. But again, the update from Rap Sheet, Jared Wilson, high ankle sprain, which your takeaway, I think, is right, Keefe. Both these guys, based on the initial reporting, sound like they could be back for the postseason.
Yeah, and what they look like is obviously TBD, right? Just because you're back doesn't mean you're moving the same and you're just like the same player. But 4 to 6 weeks, and Rapport mentions they're hoping that it's on the short side. Of course, everyone's hoping that, but if it is, then maybe you wouldn't put him on IR because they have the bye week after the Giants game, and so there's a chance where he sits for 4 weeks but only misses 3 games. If you want to play that game, or you just put him on IR, you don't rush him back. He now gets 5 weeks to recover, only missing 4 games, still back in time for a tune-up game before the playoffs. I'd be, that probably makes the most sense, cautiously. Also, I think Ben Brown can do a serviceable job at guard. I think, because Jared Wilson has had a good season, and like you found in the middle rounds, you found your starting left guard. But if you're going to grade all 5 of the offensive linemen, I would say he's probably 5th of the starters. And I think Ben Brown's your best of the backups. So it's like, all right, you kind of make a swap. You're worse. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, Wilson's starting for a reason.
There, yeah.
But Ben Brown, I don't think is going to be as big of a drop-off as what we're probably going to see the next few weeks at left tackle.
Yeah. And again, it sounds like both could be back. If we were listening to Drake May yesterday, Drake May kind of told us this.
How emotional was it to see both Jared and Will, get on and get carted off and what they were going through?
Man, shoot, I love those guys, man. It's they're gonna be all right. I think that's the big thing about those guys. They're gonna work hard and they're gonna be back, and they've done such a good job for us this year, man. I love those guys. Will and Jared, they've been meant a lot to me. I've got to know them in different ways, and it hurts. It's disappointing, man. But hey, that's this game. That's that's life, and they'll bounce back and help us down the road.
Okay, I kind of took that as like their careers aren't over. They'll be back next year. That's kind of how I took that yesterday. In retrospect, I don't know. Maybe they had some pretty good intel after the game.
I don't know. I definitely read that more as like hey, it's football. It sucks. I love those guys, but they're going to work hard and like they'll be back, meaning like in their careers.
Right.
Did not.
That's definitely how I took it last night.
No, I mean, hopefully it's this season, but I don't know. I don't, and even in that moment, maybe he wasn't entirely sure either. I mean, you see the cart out on the field, you usually think that's it. You see the towel over Will Campbell's head, you're thinking, all right, that's it for the season. And you're just hoping it's not an ACL because now you're doing the math in your head where you're like, all right, that's this season and half of next season. And
right.
You're
When's
to do all
he even
that.
back for next year?
So, maybe they kind of, got some good news in that sense where if you get both those guys back last game of the season and into the playoffs, you'll take that and you'll figure it out. Now those games against the Bills and the Ravens, which were already going to be tough games, just got a lot tougher. But I mean, week to week, I guess.
I mean, look, if Wilson, Williams, and Campbell are all back for the postseason, I mean that is you're avoiding a worst case scenario. Obviously, you definitely want Campbell and Williams back. Not that you don't want Wilson back, but I agree with you. I think that one's less impactful. Mm-hmm. You hope he's healthy, etc., but less impactful than the other two. I mean, there's a chance, based on some of the early reporting, all these guys are back for the postseason. So I would say that is dodging a bullet and avoiding a worst-case scenario. It doesn't mean they won't have some issues here to tiptoe through over the next couple of weeks.
Does it make you think about the trade deadline any differently? Because on the one hand, you're like, we all were screaming for depth. But on the other, I don't know if there were any, like, great tackles or guards available. I mean, I'm not going to lose my mind over it.
The only thing I'd say is, well, if you had extra edge rushers or another back who maybe could overcome some issues on the offensive line or another receiver or whatever. I mean, if you improved your team, it might be a little easier to get past the injuries you have on the O-line. But did O-linemen move? I feel like those guys don't traditionally move in season.
That's tough, and I feel like,
So I'm not going to kill them for not fortifying the offensive line. I'm still frustrated they didn't fortify the rest of the team because it might make it easier to overcome some of these other injuries.
Yeah, I did want them to add, but it was a matter of like, I don't think a starting caliber tackle was available, and then if you got him, what were you going to do with him?
Right.
Put him on the bench?
Right.
And like, we'll just wait for the injury? So, because I saw some of the response yesterday on like Twitter and stuff was like, oh man, they really could have used some help. It's like, of course, you could always use some help, but at that point, I don't know if somebody, now maybe the argument would be, maybe not a starter, but somebody better than Vidarian Lowe, so you feel a little bit better if there's an injury to either tackle, but this is sort of where they're at.
617-779-7937. There's the update on Jared Wilson. Again, we'll get to what happened coming up. Let me hear Mike Vrabel after the game. I thought this was an interesting answer about the team rolling with some punches and attempting to bounce back when things aren't going well, and it just I think it summarizes kind of Vrabel's whole attitude after the game. You heard it echoed with Hunter Henry earlier in the 10 o'clock hour. Like, there's a decent amount for the team to clean up. Here's Vrabel.
On Friday, you had talked about the speed in which the team recovers from a good play or a bad play.
We need some work at that, everybody, me included, starting with me. I mean, that's just, I'm proud to, keep coaching these guys, and we'll respond. But I think, we can focus on that, just the speed in which we recover, and just the these are long games, and, they're decided by a few plays. So in the end, we made a couple more than they did.
Okay. We got to be better at bouncing back from that. I got to be better at that, specifically starting with me. I was reading Mike Reese today. It's just a tweet he had responding to somebody about those comments from Vrabel. He said, reading between the lines, it sounds like they want to tighten some things up in practice that maybe led into the game.
Interesting.
So did Vrabel think they had a poor week of practice? Maybe this was one of the first times where they really did overlook the opponent.
Yeah.
And Vrabel didn't feel like they were as ready to go as they could have been. That's Reese saying.
Well, that's
at least some of that.
That's what's impressive, though, is like if you can get a wake-up call in a win, like maybe that's what it is, right? Maybe they did start to feel, because they hadn't shown that for a while, right? After being the Bills game, you kind of thought maybe there would be a little bit of a letdown. There hadn't been. Doesn't mean there weren't close games, but, it's the NFL. But they keep winning. It was very impressive, and it was easy to get, hyped for like the Tampa Bay game, because at the time you're like, Tampa Bay looked like a good team. Things have changed a little bit for them, but at the time you're like, all right, that's a big test. But then some of these other games, and for them too, it might have even been just human nature. You think maybe there's a chance it's Joe Burrow, and then you're like, oh, it's not even Joe Burrow. Like, oh, Jamar Chase spit on somebody, so he's not even going to play.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Like,
because if they're 3-7, but they're playing, that's a different game.
Burrow and Chase, you're more locked in. I mean, that's a good point. Like all of that changes. That's a fair point. Looking up, I'm just trying to find exactly what Reese said and what exactly he was responding to here, because I read that earlier today, and I want to get it right. He said about a question about the Patriots and how they played poorly. They got to stick with it. He said, reading between the lines, sounds like they want to tighten some things up in practice that maybe led into the game. Again, in a response on Twitter. So, maybe that's it. They let down because it wasn't Burrow. They knew it wasn't going to be Chase, and maybe Vrabel wasn't thrilled with that, and it's better to learn that in a win than a loss for sure.
Yeah. And then now, I mean, you want to just looking at the rest of the schedule going forward, I don't know if there's like really, you're getting so close to the end and you have the 1 seed in your grasp.
There should be something to play for.
And it's Monday Night Football. I know the
week.
Giants aren't like a thing, but like it's Monday Night Football. And then it's obviously Buffalo, Baltimore, and that's easy. And then it's 2 division games with the chance to have the number 1 seed. So maybe this was the one spot where there could have been a hiccup, and there kind of was, but they overcame it and still won the game.
You said earlier.
Yeah.
The defense yesterday was like a C+. Is that what you said defensively?
Yeah, C+.
So I don't know. Carlton Davis to me has been a bit of a disappointment this year. Like we've talked about their personnel, and it's mostly been off the charts this season. Now injuries have piled up to some of the rookie class. Kyle Williams, believe it or not, more involved yesterday. He had 1 long catch.
Nice
he was
catch
back
and
there
run.
on kick returns, which the second I saw him back there at the start of the game, I'm like, can I bet a fumble? Because I don't feel good about him holding on to it.
Yeah.
But I thought he actually kind of made some plays on the kick return. He had 1 long catch and run yesterday. So, you look at some of the personnel whiffs. He'd probably be on the whiff side. He would be on the whiff side. Carlton Davis, if you want to nitpick, I haven't been overly impressed with. Yesterday, there was the long pass interference on T. Higgins where Higgins got hurt, which he was fuming about after the game. Davis was fuming about after the game. What's the about Higgins getting hurt? Or about
motionless, smashes his head, and you're like, oh my God. At that point, you're like, how many injuries are we going to see today?
Seriously.
So that was, I just meant about that. But that was one, but that's also T. Higgins. Davis, I thought, had a decent game. I feel like he was in coverage a lot, like glued to guys.
Well, and he had a bunch of nice breakups yesterday. Like yesterday, I feel like is one of the first times you actually saw it, even though there were plays that were made on the other side as well. Marcus Jones had a big breakup late. So I guess if you want to give it up for the defense, they really gave up 1 sustained drive yesterday. I was disappointed in the field goal drive before half. It felt like they really let up. Long catch for Higgins on that one.
What do you think of Gonzalez?
63 yards.
No, but just to get him
long for McPherson.
But to get him into field goal range when there's 20 seconds or whatever it was, I was disappointed in the defense there. I think Vrabel was disappointed.
Kickpherson?
Vrabel going into halftime or coming out of halftime. I forget when he did his sideline interview, but he was like, we can't give up points there, and I agree with him. So I think the defense in general was pretty good yesterday, but when they had to have it, right before halftime, they couldn't get a stop. They, again, gave up points on the opening drive. At least this time it wasn't a touchdown. And then the touchdown drive late, you were like, oh, my God,
What
that's
is this?
way too easy.
This
So what
is
were you
like-
asking about Gonzalez?
Yeah, what do you think of that? Mitchell Tinsley on a one-on-one?
The last couple of games, Gonzalez hasn't looked locked in at all. At all.
I agree, and it's one of those things where
A.D. Mitchell could have had like 2 super long catches on him if he could catch. And then this Mitch Tinsley, whatever the hell his name is.
Mitchell Tinsley.
Twitch Mitch Tinsley is on
Lee
his-
Tinsley. Random player of the day.
Oh, man, Lee Tinsley.
I already gave it away. It's Lee Tinsley. It is Lee Tinsley.
Lee Tinsley in the grab bag
No, but
today.
so that was like the corpse of Joe Flacco slinging it to this undrafted guy who's only playing because Jamar Chase spit on a player, and he just torches Gonzalez one-on-one for a touchdown. And you're like, I think it's
He had 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns at Western Kentucky in 2021.
Oh, he's a hilltopper.
Was Bailey Zappi throwing to him?
Probably.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That was probably Zappi.
Honestly, almost definitely.
And then Drew Aller was throwing to him the next year. He went from Western Kentucky to Penn State.
Oh, did he? Yeah. He downgraded in quarterbacks play.
Lee Tinsley.
No, but I feel
Then he
like
was, didn't do much for the next 3 years.
Gonzalez is one of those guys right now that is he getting by on like reputation? Because teams don't really challenge him too much, right? So like there is that part of it where like you can almost be a shutdown corner by reputation because you're like, I don't want to go over there. I'm not going to throw that side. I'll challenge Carlton Davis more. And so teams are prepared. They know where he is all the time. So that's a great advantage to have defensively. But when they have gone to him, you're like, oh, like they're kind of completing passes. So I wonder if teams are going to challenge him more. And who knows, maybe that'll be a huge mistake and he'll make some great plays.
What did you tweet? Something like, if Tinsley's going to make catches on him, he's not going to get paid the way he wants?
Yeah, when his agent sits down with Stretch and with Cowden, and they're like, we want to be paid more than Sauce Gardner. And then they're like, all right, what about this play to Lee Tinsley? Because you're like, all right, if that's T. Higgins, all right, maybe you tip your
Robert
cap.
sits
Yeah.
down and he's like, well, we got to get the TVs working in the locker room again. We got to save money somewhere.
But I think it's
and Lee Tinsley did have a touchdown catch, so we're not going to be able to give him what he wants.
I think it's something to now. It's sort of like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because if he shuts down Lee Tinsley, nobody really gives him any credit. But then when you give up a score, you're like, wait, what the hell?
Yeah, but
so
that's
it's just
fair.
another thing.
That's fair.
That's
If
how
you're
it
a
works.
shutdown corner, you're not supposed to give up plays to Lee Tinsley.
You're not.
And when you shut him down, you're not supposed to get credit. You're a shutdown corner. You're not supposed to get credit for
what the rest of the season looks like, I think, the run defense now that Milton Williams is now, how is that going to hold up? But then also like, Wan'Dale Robinson just had a big game for the Giants. He's not terrible. He's also not Malik Neighbors, but like let's see what he looks like against Gonzalez next week.